Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center. And I like knives. I think you do too. We got some new ones to check out. So let's get right into it. So we're starting things off this week with both a new brand, not just to the Knife Center, but a new brand to the knife world, and an exclusive of their first model. The brand is Karbon with a K. The K is for Ken, as in Ken Onion. This is a new Ken Onion masterminded lineup, and this is the first model. It is the Ahoy, a essentially modern frame-locked interpretation of the Barlow aesthetic. And for our exclusive, we thought, what goes better with a classic Barlow? They were starting things off with micarta. 3 colors of micarta are available at the website, but we thought desert ironwood would be the way to go. Gives you a classic, slightly more old school pull to the aesthetic of the knife, and desert ironwood's just awesome stuff, let's be honest. Nice and stable, doesn't have to be stabilized like some other woods do, and it looks and feels fantastic. As for the rest of the knife, these are being built by Riat for the brand, so you know the quality of it is top-notch. Riat does phenomenal stuff. The blade itself, nice broad spear point, a little over 3 inches, M390 steel, full height, flat grind, just very, very cool, almost perfection in my mind. For me, when I think Barlow, I always think spear point, even though you could have clip point Barlows, and in fact, they may in fact be more common, in fact. That's a fact.
No, that's a Benchmade.
The Benchmade is a fact, you are correct. But I like a spear point Barlow, they speak to me. You do get the bolstered look, like a traditional Barlow, that is titanium integral with the frame itself, and it is a frame lock, as you can see. Interesting pocket clip here on the side, very cool geometric bends to it, lanyard attachment point. Let us check out the flipping action. It's a Riat, so it's great. We knew the answer to that going in. You will notice there are dual fullers on each side, kind of mimicking the long pull you might see on a traditional Barlow slip joint. They're not going to really do anything for the opening action. You certainly can't get in there to finger flick it because it's buried. You can't even really get in there for a two-hand open. In fact, as I'm discovering right now, you almost can't two-hand open this knife. You don't have a lot to grab onto there. This is a flipper through and through, so it's a good thing it's a good one. I suppose you could two-hand open it, but you're gonna have to use the flipper to get things started. Take that for how you will. But it's neat. I like the shield, or the anchor inlay there on the front. That goes across all the models and fits with the Ahoy name, kind of anchors away, so to speak. And that's a good metaphor for the new brand, kind of setting sail, I would say. We got that metaphor good enough? It's a cool knife. Price on these, $350 for the micarta, and the desert ironwood also, same price, $350. Next up, the Spyderco Military 2 is finally in stock and on our shelves. We've gotten through our long list of pre-orders, and now you can just go and buy the knife right now and get it in a few days rather than having to wait months for it. And I haven't held one of these in a bit, like a solid bit at this point, and it was worth the wait. $196 for this. It is cheaper, less expensive than the original Military, which is ongoing in production. They aren't discontinuing the Military 1, or just the plain old Military, in favor of the Military 2. For at least right now, they're continuing to build both of them. But by way of comparison, before we get into the rest, here is that original Military, or the currently produced standard version of the original Military. And you can see some subtle differences. Blade is pretty much identical, but locking mechanism obviously is the first and foremost. We've got a compression lock in the Military 2 versus the liner lock on the Military. You have a more pronounced finger choil, an actual defined finger choil the way Spyderco usually does it, as opposed to the more rounded look on the original Military. We've also got slightly slimmed down handle here at the back, and it's really just the geometry of the beak has been softened just a little bit, because that choil there does push your hand a little further back than the more gentle version on the Military, so they wanted to slim things up right there. And then the other thing that folks have really wanted, no longer is it consigned to just tip down carry. You have a 4-position pocket clip on the Military 2, so you can carry it up, down, left, or right, no problems. But it's cool to kind of look at this also next to the Paramilitary 2, which is kind of, you know, the original Military inspired the Paramilitary, and then the Paramilitary 2 saw some refinements, namely compression lock, finger choil, etc. And they've now brought that stuff back after long last to the original Military, making this is where we don't do a fancy smash cut. You can pretend it was like a little flash thing. Into the Military too. There you go.
So he's a VFX editor now.
Maybe something like that. But it feels very good in the hand. It's if you have the original Military too, you will notice some slight differences. If you haven't, it's subtle. It really is, but effective, I think. 4-inch blade, S30V steel, full flat grind, a little bit thicker than some knives out there, just like the Paramilitary 2, but it still slices nice and good thanks to the full flat grind there and the very acute tip. The action on the compression lock is very good. Nothing's poking up into that compression lock bar when you're using it. Just very, very satisfying overall. Feels good choked up for the finder control. Feels good choked back for more brute force and more reach. Plain black G10. It's the standard model, made in the USA. Good to go and available right now. Next up, we have another US-made Spyderco, the UK Penknife, the United Kingdom PK. $98 for this with their proprietary powder steel Spy 27, which is not identical to stuff like S30V, S35VN, 45, etc., but it should give you similar kind of performance. Slightly different characteristics, but in terms of your edge retention and ease of use, might be easier to sharpen, in fact, but should give you similar performance. This is the UK PK because it is a non-locking knife, a slip joint, as you can see, which in the UK, that is a verboten thing. But it is handy for anyone who just doesn't want to deal with the hassle of a lock, or anyone in another place where you might be kind of forbidden from carrying a locking knife. Unfortunately, there are places like that. But you do have some safety, even though you lack the lock here, because of Spyderco's kind of signature usage of their finger choil design. If the blade were to pop loose and start to close, your finger's in the way to keep it from closing all the way. So that's pretty nice too. Nice kind of cobalt blue color, FRN in this case, kind of matching a lot of their Spy 27 knives out there. Deep carry wire clip to keep things nice and subtle. Certainly doesn't scream knife from the outside of the pocket, which if you're trying to kind of fly under the radar with a knife like this anyway, certainly a good thing. Great edge geometry on these two. Thinner steel than the Military 2 full flat grind. Very, very slicey, very, very pokey as well. Next up, last week Kershaw announced their latest drop of knives, and we've got them here now. The kind of big ticket item here is probably the all blacked out Iridium model, coming in just a few bucks more than the standard version, which was 65 bucks. This is just under $68 right now. 3.4-inch D2 blade, very cool profile, nice swedge, higher flat grind, but not super high. Great, great everyday thing, not too thick, still gonna slice really well. And when I say all blacked out, I mean everything here, as much as possible, has been blacked out. All the hardware, all the screws, the pocket clip, the lock bar, the thumb studs, the blade itself, the aluminum handle, all black. You do have the edge, of course, the logo, and the tang of the knife where it interfaces with their crossbar lock right there, because you don't want to impede that excellent action they've got going on here. Ball bearings in this pivot. It's very free floating, very, very satisfying to use, and very effective too. For the lefties out there, this is a completely ambidextrous knife. You've got a reversible clip, you've got the ambidextrous lock, of course, and dual thumb studs, but I can never even use the thumb studs because this is just so fun. But they're there if you want them. Just very cool, a bit more of a tactical vibe than the standard non-blacked out version, but this has been a very popular knife in that other configuration, so it's cool to see another option right here. Great everyday carry knife for sure. Also new is an addition to the Deschutes fixed blade lineup, and I love the handles on these knives. I've loved them from the original releases. Now you can get it with this gut-hooked Skinner blade. $55 for this. That's the other thing too. Great value here. 4-inch blade, D2 steel, nice and slicey, stone-washed finish to aid in corrosion resistance a little bit. You can think of it kind of like micro-polishing in a random pattern of the blade itself, because D2 is of course a semi-stainless, so every little bit helps there. And your scratches are gonna hide and look good on that blade because they're gonna blend in just a little bit with the finish that's there. But that's cool, but I started out saying I love the handles, and I do. They are perfectly shaped for fine control when you need it, and if you needed to kind of gorilla grip it and push it a little further, it can do that too. But I love the ergonomics of it. I love the thumb ramp, the thumb scallops here for the pinch grips. It just helps really effectively use that blade overall. Slightly rubbery texture to it, so you've got plenty of grip, even if things are bloody in a hunting situation or just general outdoor wet environs at times where you might not be using this knife for a hunting context. The sheaths are also well done. Really, a lot here is incredibly well thought out for such a budget knife. It is an injection molded sheath. The hand or the knife doesn't click in because it's kind of soft due to the rubberized texture here, but the retention is quite good. And if you want to give it just a little bit extra, you do have the snap strap, that's the word for it, there on the outside as well. You can do aftermarket belt attachments if you wish. The slot and hole configuration here will work very well with a broad variety of things, or you just use the included drop loop, which comes with a Velcro bit here. So if you wanted to, you could take it on or off your belt without having to undo said belt as well. There's no extra snap in there, so eventually that Velcro could wear out. I don't know if it's name brand Velcro or not, beside the point. So keep that in mind, but you have the option there for sure. Very, very nicely done. But actually, the other thing you could do, I just noticed this, is actually Velcro down here as well. So you could take this out and put your own drop loop system that you prefer on there, whatever you like. So very cool indeed. Next up, a couple of knives in a genre that Kershaw does really well, and that's the very affordable range, creating things that are very solid feeling at a very affordable price point. This is the Align, a 3.15-inch bladed assisted flipper for just $32. For that, you've got a stainless steel frame lock, plenty of strength, plenty of lockup. I mean, that is a rock solid feeling blade. 8CR series steel, which is nothing to sneeze at this price range, let's be honest. Plenty of solid performance on offer there. Deep carry pocket clip. Actually, it is reversible. Sorry, I was about to say it wasn't reversible. Left or right carry is enabled. The frame lock, though, of course, is a right-handed lock. It's just a solid pocket knife. The action is likewise solid. The blade is nice and versatile. You've got a high hollow grind here, keeping the edge itself very thin, and of course making a knife like this last longer, because as you sharpen that steel, the edge is going to stay thinner than if it was a flat grind. So nice advantage there for the budget conscious heavy knife user. Yeah, I mean, nothing to sneeze at there. $32, you're getting a lot for what you're paying. The next knife is the Korra. Comes in just under $25 right now. 2 3/4-inch blade, high hollow grind here as well, stone washed finish. Not 8CR here. This is a 5CR steel, so this is going to need a bit more sharpening over time than your 8CR knives for sure. Injection molded handles, liner lock on this one. Very deep carry pocket clip. I mean, that even sticks out past the end of the handle, so you're able to keep that way out of the way as you desire, which is nice. And assisted opening with KVT ball bearings in the pivot here as well. Repeatable action every time. This is just a great little pen knife, quite honestly. $25, not too shabby. Next up, we've got a couple new color variants of some existing models from Kershaw. This is the Kapsule, a Jens Anso design. This is coming in about $39 right now with a sub 2-inch D2 blade. So you've got your tool steel there with a bit more edge retention than your 8CRs, of course, but it is going to be a bit harder to sharpen and not stainless, of course. We talked about that already, semi-stainless. You've got a slider switch, basically. Push the button in and you can manually slide the blade in or out the front of the handle, which is just so fun. And now you have another color here to play around with too. This is a knife that would work great in the on your keychain because you do have a, what's the word, Thomas?
You're on your own.
You're a big help. Lanyard bail.
There you go.
We'll go with that. You could put this on your keychain quite easily. Not likely to come open while it's on your keychain because it has, you really have to push down and out very intentionally. If you were to put it on your keychain, of course, you could remove that pocket clip. The pocket clip works great, and this would make a great little 5th pocket carry too. I do say so myself. So I do. There you go. New version of the Kapsule. And last Kershaw, but certainly not the least Kershaw this week, new colors of the Outlier Karambit, which at about $46, $47, I think definitely sets the standard for affordable karambits out there. There's not a lot in that price range that I can truly get behind. This is certainly something that I do. I mean, it is built very well. 2.6-inch blade, 8CR steel, stonewashed or black stonewashed finishes available now. New handle colors, there's a green, there's this tan, I think that's it, green, tan, and black are the 3 options right now, and you can pair that up with the different blade finishes. Actually, the tan and the black washed blade looks really good too. The ring is very nicely done, smoothed over all the parts that might otherwise cause hot spots. You've got a couple of extra indexing points on the outside of the ring with jimping, so it's not just a smooth ring, can give you some kind of extra options for manipulating the knife. You've also got a reversible pocket clip, not deep carry, of course, because you got a lot of ring sticking out of ye old pocket. Liner lock, assisted opening action, and 2 ways to open. You've got your flipper tab, and you've got an oversized thumb stud. Very easy to find that in a pinch, and the blade, as soon as you start opening it, that spring takes over and finishes the action very, very nicely indeed. Check it out. A lot of great affordable stuff from Kershaw this week. Next up, for a knife that curves the other way than the hawkbill shape of the karambit right there, check out this new GiantMouse. This is the Jutland, or Jutland if you're unfamiliar with Scandinavian pronunciations. $245 for this. Very striking. Burlap micarta handles, contoured for a great feel in the hand. Brass backspacer for a cool look, cool contrast with the black burlap, and a little bit of weight and some personality since that's going to patina. I love the use of the black hardware against this burlap too. It really, really looks great. And then probably the coolest thing for steel junkies out there, a Venatus 4 Extra blade steel right here. V4E, similar to your CPM 4V if you're more familiar with that, which is an American-made steel. The Venatus is made by Bowler, if I'm remembering correctly. I think so. We're gonna go with that. Very cool stuff, very tough, which on a ostensibly hunting folder like this, where you might be getting down into stuff, maybe contacting bone, extra toughness is always gonna be a nice thing, but it still holds an edge really, really nicely too. Not a stainless steel, so keep that in mind if you go this route. Inset liner lock is nice. We've got a reversible blackened wire pocket clip. Not quite deep carry in this case, but it is a loop over style. Great flipping action. There's ball bearings in these pivots. You can reverse flick quite nicely. It's just a cool combination of really nice materials for the handle, a blade steel you don't see too often in fixed or folder form, at least here in the States. So it's a winning combo, I think. Dig that very much. And it's not just a hunting folder too. It's certainly going to work anywhere where you need some good sliciness, because the geometry there is quite nice. The tip is going to pierce quite nicely too. If you want something smaller, we've got another new GiantMouse this week, a blackout version of the Riv, coming in $235 right now. This one is also made like our Karbon in the beginning by Riot over there in China, whereas I should say the Jutland we just looked at was made in Italy. But back to the Riv, it's not quite as blacked out fully as the Iridium because we still have that pop of brass there at the back spacer, but all the rest has received the blackened treatment. Contoured titanium handles, frame lock, 20 CV blade steel in this case, a little bit under 2.5 inches, tip to scale. Smaller knife, 3-finger grip behind the flipper tab, but as long as your fingers aren't so big they walk onto the edge itself, you could get a more like 3.5 to 4-finger grip on the knife too. It's a great little modified sheep's foot style, I would say in this case. You can still get plenty of good use out of the tip. There is a little bit of belly, hence the modified there, and a nice drop. Great utility shape, maybe slightly more versatile than some, thanks to the belly there. Let me know what you folks think. Like the Jutland, we've got ball bearings in the pivot and 2 opening methods, the flipper tab and the finger cutout as well. Next up, maybe I should have put these next to the UK Penknife earlier. It's kind of a similar genre. We have the Slipjoint version of the QSP Penguin now in stock. Actually, let me check. I didn't see how many different SKUs we have, different variants we have in the new Slipjoint. Let me just filter here real quick to find that out. 10 different variations right now. So if neither of these 2 colors speak to you, but you kind of like the idea of the design, check out the link in our description to see all of them. But there's basically 2 tiers. There's the more affordable version and there is the pimped out, more expensive version. We'll start with the affordable version, why not? Price on these are just under $63 for that. You get a 14C 28N blade steel, that excellent Sandvik steel right there, just over 3 inches. And this is an unmodified sheep's foot here, just straight up sheep's foot utility. Very strong for heavier cuts when needed. Still enough tip there to do some decent work. Even if it's not as pointy as something like a true Wharncliffe, you can still get plenty of utility out of that right there. The handles are G10, they're finished nicely, and check out how great that smooth finishing of the liners and back spring are. I mean, virtually seamless, super, super nice for sure. As for the action on these, resounding. They feel great. You have dual fullers on there to make opening said knife very easy. Not so much in the, you don't get so much safety like you do on something like the UK Penknife. If you're back here behind the finger guard and for some reason the blade were to close on you, you are gonna kind of get the edge in the way. But I should mention, like, the retention on that open position here is plenty strong, but it is non-locking, so be careful. If you go up onto the finger choil area, you would think that could give you some protection too, but again, you're right there on the back side of the edge. So if it does close, you're still kind of gonna be not too happy, I would say. But it's a slip joint, treat it as such. As long as you're being safe, you can have no problem with that. That's the more affordable tier. The more expensive tiers come with decked out handle materials and upgraded blade steel for a fair chunk more. These are about $195 right now. This one has the black coated 20 CV blade steel and the jungle wear fat carbon handles. Fit and finish, just as good as the standard version. Or should I say, the base model's fit and finish is just as good as the high-end version, because I really do think the finishing on the slip joint here is top-notch. There's companies that don't do it nearly this well for less or more money in some cases. I mean, it just sounds great too, in addition to being finished great and looking very nice. As for other versions, let's see here real quick. You've got other fat carbons, some more wild colors. You've got uncoated blades. If you prefer the non-blackened look, go ahead and check them out. Next up, we've got a couple of Bestechs. Last week we saw a more affordable Bestechman Mini Dundee, but now we've got some of their more high-end pieces. This is the Cetus, a crossbar locking knife designed by Poltergeist Knife Works, coming in about $279 right now. wicked M390 blade, almost 4 inches long, very aggressive, very distinctive Tonto profile going on here. Compound ground, kind of aggressively compound ground, in fact. Nice high hollow grind here. The edge stays nice and thin back there for everyday cutting, but you've got a more robust flat grind at the tip for push cuts on that area, maybe a little bit of chiseling type of work. And a very acute tip here. So the thicker edge geometry doesn't really give you a stronger piercing knife in this case, given the exact shape of this, because you do have such an acute tip. But of course, it's stronger than if it were a hollow ground front section, that's for sure. But no, keep that in mind and you'll be happy. The crossbar lock feels perfect. I mean, it's exactly what you want. Closes up nice, flips open quite nicely. Plenty of girth in the handles here. Titanium bolster, micarta handle scales on this one. A couple different versions, of course, are available in typical Bestech fashion. You can check those out. Prices go up on some of them. Some like $314 for some of the more exotic handle materials. It's actually not a huge jump compared to some other companies out there. The other thing I really like about this is the pivot and the single backspacer screw here. You can adjust them with a flathead. You don't need any specialty Torx bits or anything. Really nice, really cool looking too. What else? Ambidextrous thumb plate. So if you wanted to open this with your thumb, you could do that way. Non-ambidextrous pocket clip in this case, however, unfortunately. But single position screw, if you're carrying this on the right side anyway, that won't bother you. But a really neat looking design, milled. Very cool. Dig it. Next up, a smaller knife with a horn cliff blade. This is the VK-Void, a frame locking front flipper made of titanium. $253 for this version right here. Some cool stuff going on. 2.85-inch blade, L-Max steel, which is pretty cool. Blade is thin enough that you're going to be able to slice real efficiently with it, and you've got a very acute tip along with that almost perfectly straight edge. It's technically, we have to call it modified in that case, but
might as well. I
wouldn't be mad if you just called it a straight up Wharncliffe. I wouldn't even bother with the modified in this case, even if that might be technically correct. No matter, not important. Very cool little shape. This one, you will need a Torx bit if you want to adjust the pivot, but the other side does have a flathead. That's kind of nice. Front flipper. I haven't tried to front flip this one at all yet. Let's see if I embarrass myself. Nope, we're good today.
Next time, guys.
Next time. There it was. That was the next time. Oh, come on. Anyway, I'll slow roll it, no problem. Let's play around with the thumb hole instead, or the finger hole. Reverse flick, as you can see, worked great. Nice titanium finishing. I like the surround of the pivot there on the back. That acts also as your over travel stop to keep the lock bar from being pushed out too far. Milled pocket clip. Interesting what they did with the lanyard position here, the hidden lanyard hole. You can see it's off center just a little bit, rather than, well, I guess because they milled it through. If they had milled it through right in the middle, it's actually kind of clever now that I'm looking at it more. By putting it off center a little bit, your backspacer can still be a single piece coming around the back. It's kind of interesting, rather than having to add a post or something right there if they had gone straight through the middle and gone wider than the backspacer. That's kind of neat. Something I haven't seen done before, which is always also quite neat. So check those out. Bunch of cool new Bestechs in stock right now. I'm having trouble actually showing all of them, so head on over. Last but not least, we've got some kitchen knives today. They are made by White River and designed by Liong Ma for them. Let me make sure I got my prices correct. Yeah, but we've got two sizes here, a 7.5-inch chef, and is this 5 or 5.5? A 5-inch smaller utility style knife, or maybe a petty knife, you might say. $200 for the smaller, $300 for the larger. Each of them available with black G10, like you see on the big chef, and rich light, as you see on the smaller one. Gotta love some rich light. Rich light is essentially, it's actually, I'd think about it here for just a second, and to make sure I'm correct in my thinking, it's very similar to paper micarta. It's made using recycled paper materials for rich light. And if you know paper micarta, you know with a matte texture, which these have, they feel absolutely kind of like silky smooth without being slippery. And when they get wet, especially in a kitchen, they don't feel slippery either. They almost take on a tacky quality. And I have some paper micarta kitchen knives in my collection, and it is my favorite handle material on a kitchen knife, bar none. So I'm very happy to see the rich light here in this case. It's good stuff. Check it out. S35 VN steel on the blades, stone washed finish to keep it looking good long term. Nice and thin on this little 5-incher right here. Very manipulatable, very nimble, maybe slightly handle heavy, but not insurmountably so. Very, very nice feeling, very nicely constructed as well. The bigger knife is likewise nice and thin, so it kind of is a blend between like a Japanese style knife that tend to have thinner, more precise edges. I'm very generalizing here, of course, compared to like a German or Western style chef knife, which is typically a little thicker, more of a bludgeoner, brute force type of thing. These are more about precision. Interestingly, if I pinch just ahead of the kind of finger ramp or pinch ramp here, it feels a little bit handle heavy, but if you are pinching right on that ramp, it is perfectly neutral. And one thing I especially like, it's got a great rock. This, if you're doing mincing on a cutting board, it doesn't clunk down when you come down. There's a bit of over travel. That's ultimately gentler. It's more fluid. You're able to kind of do the motions a little bit faster, a little bit more surely, because your motion isn't just coming to a stop. And if you're doing a lot of kitchen work, it's easier on your wrist as well. Repetitive strain injuries are no joke with that sort of thing. But that's what we've got this week. I think those turned out great. White River does great stuff. US made. I mean, I'm sold. It's great. Check out everything below if you are interested. You can find links in the description that will take you to KnifeCenter.com, where thanks to our long-running Knife Rewards program, you can earn free money up to 5% back on your knife purchases to put towards a future one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. Rather quiet today, but that's.
No, I wasn't.
And we're signing off. See you next time.